One fun thing about teaching environmental science is I try to guess what the College Board is going to put on an exam. Now, there's a pattern. Maybe you've seen a television show called Law and Order, and maybe you've noticed that at the beginning of most Law and Orders, especially the older ones, there'll be a disclaimer on the screen that says, while this is fiction, this was inspired by true events. And the College Board uses the Law and Order model, where they'll be inspired by true events. So they find a big headlines topic, usually of the previous calendar year. And then if it was big in the news, they'll propose it early in the current calendar year for that spring's AP exam. So what was big in 2020 that might be going through review January, February, that might end up on the test in May? This is my fun activity. I keep myself entertained with this. And you may not have paid a lot of attention, but I graze environmental media nonstop. And something that was a really big whoop in 2020 was deforestation. Maybe you remember that in the Amazon, there was like the worst year for deforestation. Maybe you remember that there was a whole bunch of fires in California and also in Australia. So now we're on to something, because I feel like deforestation was a big topic in 2020, might show up in May on the AP test. So I have a bunch of things to tell you about deforestation, and it's almost never what people think. You can tell who's been in this class versus who's a member of the general public, because the real science is very different from what most people think of. You know, our casual grazing of environmental topics in the media may not have the right science. So deforestation is mostly not what you think. So most people think deforestation is to make logs. Like when you go to the Home Depot and you see those huge racks of 2x4s, you're like, that's deforestation, because those are the wood products that you see and interact with most often. But no, it's definitely not that. I'll explain. And these notes, I think, kind of fall in number 23, but maybe don't fall anywhere. Number one, misunderstanding. Most people who are cutting wood are trying to stay warm and cook food. Like, as a global number of humans, roughly 1/2 of humanity harvests their own heat energy. And this is deforestation, but technically it's debrushistation, right? Because this is small woody plants. This isn't people felling a coastal redwood. This is people cutting down scrubby mesquite brush in the desert or something. But that is the majority of the human activity of cutting down biomass, is just to make heat. This is fuel for staying warm or for cooking. Sorry, I'm noticing in my speaker view that my sweater's dirty. Then, when we talk about industrial, like using machinery and loggers and trucks and roads and clear cuts and stuff, that's mostly for paper, followed by lumber. The paper thing has really taken off because COVID, home shopping, Amazon boxes. But the deforestation that we see on the news is in the tropics, right? And the crazy thing is, I wish you were in my classroom. I have a big poster I could have shown you. Deforestation is usually monitored by satellites, and deforestation in the tropics, like Brazil and the Congo Basin, in Central Africa, and Indonesia, most deforestation is slash and burn, where people cut stuff down, they walk through the forest and push it over, and then they light that on fire. And most of that is done for bulk agriculture. So you cut it down, those ashes after it's burned mix into the soil to put a few nutrients back. Usually, tropical soils are sand. Any nutrients were already turned into biomass. So you start with crappy soil, take all the biomass, light it on fire, and then those ashes improve the soil so you can plant things. In the tropics, what we plant is usually grain. And most of that is for feeding animals or for making biofuel or for making raw material to make fiber for like the boards inside of a battery or whatever. This is bulk agriculture, not for human consumption. There's a rise in deforestation for oil palms. Palm oil, it's like really common in food. So there's a whole bunch of deforestation in Indonesia for palm oil plantations. They plant palm trees and then they squeeze the center of the palm tree to get oil out. After slash and burn, then you ranch. And the secret timeline of the tropics is important for you to know. I'd like you to be writing all this down. We say that the door was opened, the point of penetration, the gateway to tropical deforestation is illegal mines. So it goes like this. In the tropics, some miner will cut through virgin forest in the tropics, like machete and shooting jaguars and trying not to get eaten by a venomous snake, to find deposits of precious metals and precious stones. Then once they find that, they start mining it. And here's the secret. They've now made an entry point with a little campground covered in forest. That's usually secretive. It's usually illegal. Now that you've made that road and that mining camp, when you pull out and go somewhere else, you've left a little road and a little camp. And usually there will be a couple of folks that follow behind to get exotic animals for the pet trade. Cool tropical fish, cool birds, cool reptiles that you sell to rich people, you know, like jaguars on a gold chain. Or here in the United States, we have a thriving exotic pet market. People, you know, when I was your age, I had exotic pets. Then somebody will pick through the forest. In the rainforest, there might be one or two cool logs. Neat, you know, like rosewood. You might have heard of fancy guitars, or like, what is it, ebony, like the black keys on a traditional piano, or maybe mahogany. Maybe your family has like a nice mahogany desk from grandpa's age or something. Those are rare hardwoods, and there is a little bit of logging in the tropics, but it's usually just for those trees, like one tree per square mile or something. It's not a lot. You fell one tree, you make it into slabs on the spot, you carry those slabs out, and you sell those for kind of a ton of money. Then, after the road got bigger for the exotic pet trade and after people drove out the fancy hardwoods, then it's kind of like nobody seems to value this anymore. So you go through and you cut everything down and you light it on fire. That's what we see from space. That's how we map tropical deforestation, is the size of the fires. And the only reason that you burn it is to put ashes back on the dirt so you can rototill that, and then you can grow corn or soy. Almost all of it is soy. You might get 1 year or 2 years of soy, and then it won't grow anymore. It's basically no good for farming. So if you let the grasses grow, you can graze cattle 1 or 2 years, maybe goats, something really scruffy, go through there, and then it's fully desertified. You've turned tropical rainforest into tropical desert, desertification, right? Doesn't take very long because the soil was really crappy to begin with. And you're left with stuff that can't sustain a forest anymore. the full time of human uses from the first illegal mine until the moment when it's abandoned by the last rancher, that full turnaround is usually a couple years of mining, a short period of harvesting exotic animals and exotic logs, couple years after slash and burn of agriculture, and maybe a couple of years. So in a decade tops, tropical rainforest goes from one extreme of high diversity, high productivity tropical rainforest to useless badlands, just sand. Maybe 10 years tops. Because I'm Argentinian, fun fact, Argentinians all fetishize Brazil. It's tough to explain, but Argentinians love Brazil. They love Brazilians, I should probably say. So I've always grown up kind of learning about Brazil. My uncles and grandparents traveling to Brazil. I have visited Brazil. It's a beautiful nation. And Brazil has really dramatic tropical deforestation. I know that that's the same in the Congo and Indonesia, but I've experienced Brazil. And when you see those places after the forest is done, it's nothing. It's like driving through Barstow, like, you know, that distant, like it's just sand forever, sand and rocks. It's pretty depressing to see that. Now, as bad as all of that is, and as depressing as that is, that's the stuff that we cause directly by human activity on the spot. But there's another type of deforestation called indirect deforestation, when something you do in one place leads to the loss of forest somewhere else. Even though you're not there to take away the forest is still dying because of human things. Number one is air pollution, where stuff that you're doing like in your factory makes things which kill trees. And this is usually like a bullseye around humans. So if you've got like a city or a factory or a mine, then that air pollution will tend to kill trees right nearby and hurt trees and stunt the growth of trees. And so like bullseyes of damage around human developments. And, you know, there's a lot of human developments on the map, so that's actually really significant, air pollution. Number two is climate change. And this is huge. Entire continents worth of forest are experiencing changes in rainfall, changes in insect community, right? Like now there's bugs that do better at eating the trees. Maybe you've heard about the pine beetles that are moving into the Sierra Nevada. You may have seen those huge tracts of dead trees in the Sierra. Climate change causes changes in soil quality. And I forgot to put it on this screen. I'm glad you can hear me. Get ready to write something that's not on the screen. Fire. Climate change makes fires more severe, more likely, makes them hotter, makes them last longer. So climate change would not cause an individual fire, but climate change can make fires worse. There's a study coming up about that. And debatably, all those things that we do indirectly are forcing more habitat loss than all the direct deforestation on this screen. Now, this is a debatable thing, right? Because what percentage of fire do you attribute to climate change versus what percentage would have happened without the climate change? There's a little debate. It's tough to tie individual events, but we do know something for sure. Our direct deforestation is roughly steady, but our indirect deforestation is spiking. Air pollution, climate change, through changes in rainfall, insect community, soil quality, and the fire thing. So sometime, if it's not now, soon, indirect deforestation will be responsible for more than all of the fuels and the paper and the logging and the other things that cause the penetration into the rainforest. I got a hunch this is a high probability topic for the AP exam this year. It could certainly be. And then the video about fires also, likewise, because we've had so many fires. That's another likely one for the AP test.